Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're joined here by Admiral Gallaudet. We're just going to talk about, we have the honor of being here with him today, so we're just going to talk about his recent congressional testimony, what he knows about UAPs, the significance to us as future naval officers, and also any leadership style traits that he has that he wants to share with us that might be beneficial to us as future naval officers in the future. Just a little introduction to who Admiral Gallaudet is. He was the CEO of Ocean STL Consulting. He's a USN 1989 grad. He has a doctoral degrees in oceanography from the Scripps Institution, was the 2017 to 2021 Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Ocean's Atmosphere, the Deputy Administration of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. He contributed to Harvard's Galileo project for ETCs, recipient of the Champion Ocean Award in 2019, and the recipient of the Coast Guard Public Service Award. So that was just to name a few of your accolades. So, sir, we thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, and so the first thing we want to just hop right into it about UFOs and UAPs. Would you be able to describe for maybe some people that don't really know that much about it, why you testified and just maybe some of the details of how you guys got involved in UAPs and UFOs in the first place?
Sure. So UFO, unidentified flying object, aliens, whatever. And most people know about this in popular culture. And in the last decade, there's been a big change in how accepted they are now becoming, and particularly by the U.S. government. So now the new term is unidentified anomalous phenomena. And it's because Congress has learned that the Department of Defense ran a UFO program where images from sensors of these things, UAP, were being captured by Navy F-18s, other sensors, shipboard sensors, and they were actually causing safety incidents in airspace. And this has been going on for some time. And so Congress eventually started passing some laws to direct the Department of Defense to stand up an office to study whenever data was captured by a U.S. military or intelligence community sensor, and study them and determine if they were either our tech, adversary tech, or something else, just so we have a better understanding of what's going on in our airspace. And now we know they happen in the ocean too, our water space. So that's sort of the nutshell of it. Is it went from being some kind of fringe topic in popular culture to being something real and accepted by the U.S. government as something that needs to be researched. Now, there's a lot of nuances to all that, and the laws that Congress has passed. They've stood up an office in the Department of Defense called the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office to do this research. But that's it in a nutshell, and we can explore the topic however you wish.
Okay, what do you see as the relevance to us as future naval officers? Why should we know more about UAPs and UFOs, and how can this affect our careers in the future?
Well, that's a really good question. So let's back up a little bit. Okay, most people they've thought about this. That more than a majority of Americans think that we're probably not alone in the universe. And what's remarkable is the government has managed programs that are highly classified to not only collect the information on sensors, but believe it or not, UFOs have crashed. We've retrieved material from them, and even the occupants, the pilots. This is totally serious. So we're not alone in this universe. We know there's an acronym they use in one of the pieces of congressional legislation, non-human intelligence, which is just incredible when you think about it. And this is something the government has been managing. But the fear that this could cause panic in the population, and the concern that the technology of these craft that we have, and actually we've turned them over to contractors, might give our adversaries an advantage, led to a classification regime that even exceeded that of nuclear secrets. And so, but on the surface of this whole topic is this explosive fact that we're not alone in the universe. And this is a new reality. And as naval officers, the future, the near future in your careers is not going to be anything like it has been for mine with this new knowledge. And how that trajectory goes is not is anyone's guess, but in general, it's going to be more and more accepted. So the X-Files are going to be real. And I don't know how that will interact with your careers, but here, for example, and this is just unbelievable, we're having this conversation, but if any, for the audience, 2 Navy pilots who were involved in one incident off the USS Nimitz 20 years ago, Commander David Fravor and his I think her backseater, his Wizzo was Alex Dietrich, or she was maybe she was on in his section. I forgot. I think she was a pilot. Yeah, she was a pilot. But they were on 60 Minutes talking about this. They were interacting with UFOs repeatedly, UAP off SoCal, and this is still happening. The USS Omaha, and I just talked to an OS senior chief, Luke. Luke is an operations specialist as well. Though he was on the Omaha, and the Omaha witnessed a UAP that actually went into the water off SoCal. And the video is out there. It was leaked. And the OSC on the bridge called me after my testimony and told me all about it. And you know what he also told me? He said, I was on the bridge, I saw it all, there were multiple types of objects, and he said, that wasn't even that wasn't the biggest deal. The biggest deal is I went on to the USS Jackson, and they went deployed to Hawaii, and he saw multiple of these objects at night, and they were flying in ways that our aircraft couldn't. They were zigzagging and going rapidly accelerating, all this amazing things. Every time I'm on a podcast or I get calls from people, I developed a slide. I can share it with you if you want to share it with your company.
Sure.
Just in the few years I've been speaking up about this, and I should probably tell you why I'm speaking up about this. I put together a slide of all the reports I got. You know, I put little dots on the globe of them, and there's a couple dozen all around the globe, from the Arctic down to Diego Garcia, and in all the platforms that these people have reported that they were on. So we're talking cruisers, aircraft carriers, destroyers, SORTAS ships, Navy ocean surveillance ships, S-3s, F-18s, A-6s, NASA experimental craft. These are pilots and operators doing all sorts of things, and they've all had very real encounters with these. I'll back up here, and let me explain to you why I'm doing it. 2 is, aren't we just intellectually curious that there's other intelligences out in the universe?
It's one of the biggest revelations for our culture.
It is.
How would that shift our culture?
Well, right, 100%, everything about our civilization. So think about every field of study that will be influenced by this. History, anthropology, of course, physics and
Technology,
and cyber, exactly.
Cyber.
So that's pretty monumental. But the other thing is, in the few people that are coming out to speak about this that have some knowledge or experience, and I had an experience, it was in my testimony about coming across one of these videos before they were declassified.
Go faster.
That was it. That was it. And these, Alex Dietrich was a JG, David Fravor was a commander. You have people like Ryan Graves, who I'm on his advisory board now. He stood up a nonprofit. He was an F-18 pilot. His squadron was interacting with these all the time, and he actually he had 2 of his squadron mates were in a section, and one of these UAPs split the section. Now, for aviators, they understand how serious that is. Because you're operating in airspace, restricted airspace, you don't want to have anything within a mile of your aircraft for safety of flight and deconfliction. So that safety risk there is real, and that was one of the incidents that led to the email I received. But also, I'm coming out because all these aviators and other operators, Kevin Day on the Princeton during the Nimitz incident, he's an OS senior chief. They've been ridiculed, and there's reasons for that that I can get into. And I just thought, you know what, this is the truth. We should stand up for the truth, and give these people, these courageous whistleblowers and witnesses, a top cover and validate their credibility. And that's what I'm doing. But because of my having led a government agency and having been a 1-star and served and graduated from the academy, I thought someone like me should step up, and that's why I've done it. What else?
Yeah. So how did that feel? One day, I think right now, I'm me and Luke we're just like plebes, and then one day you're a plebe,
Not just
and
plebes. You're serving our country.
Yes, and the next day, you're testifying before Congress. How did that feel for you personally? Was that just a really proud moment for you? Were you nervous before, or did you feel confident going out there? How did you feel before that?
Well, that's a nice question. Well, I wasn't that nervous because I've testified about 12 times in front of Congress. Once as a 1 star, and then the other remainder as the head of NOAA. And that was usually to a very unfriendly Congress because I was a Trump appointee, and he was trying to cut our budget badly, and I knew, anyways. But I was pretty experienced, and I was proud to do that because it was historic. There's only been 3 UAP hearings. The first one, I think, in 2022.
Is it David Grush?
No, this first one included the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, Ron Moultrie, and then Scott Bray, who was in Naval Intelligence. They were Moultrie was a undersecretary, and Bray was, I believe, a senior executive in intelligence. And they revealed a little bit, but it was the first one, and that was something. But then came the 2023 hearing, which I was at, and Ryan Graves, the former pilot, David Grush, the intelligence officer, and David Fravor spoke on that. But and then having this one, so it was pretty significant, and I knew thousands, maybe even more than 1 million people would be dialing into this. So there was a little bit of pressure, but I did my homework. Like anything, you need to study your topic and know it well, and I knew it well, and I was proud to speak up and speak the truth to the issue. So, I wasn't that nervous. I was ready, but it was something, that's for sure.
Definitely, yeah. I want to talk about. I'm like curious. So before, Luke, could you bring up the Go Fast video?
Oh, nice.
I'm curious. Yeah, we have it pulled up. I'm just curious. Like before you received the email with the Go Fast video, did you like believe in like this like extraterrestrial possibility of like something that's like beyond Earth, or like was this like email like the thing that kind of like made you like really believe it?
Well, I had a tour as the superintendent of the Naval Observatory, which is a really neat command. The METOC community owns it, and it does precise. It creates a precise time reference, which is a system of 100 atomic clocks over that average out and create this highly accurate and precise time reference that's used for everything: computer networks, GPS. Nothing works without precise time. And that is a really neat command, and it originated with determining time by monitoring the sun and the moon, and the sun at noon is the precise time reference of the old days of sail, and so this observatory also measures precise positions of stars used for satellite navigation, and so great command. But in measuring stars and making star catalogs, I had a team of astrophysicists. And I studied a lot about the universe and cosmology when I was at that command, just to learn about what my people did. And I got to appreciate that the universe is giant. It's 100, just in our galaxy alone, between 100 and 400 billion stars, and we don't even know the exact number. That's just the Milky Way. Then we know in the observable universe there are possibly 2 trillion galaxies. And it's mind-numbing, it's incomprehensible how big the universe is. Yeah. And when you think 14 billion years of a known universe being in existence, that we're the only intelligent species that's evolved to travel between celestial bodies is a bit myopic. And we know, a lot of people think, oh, we're just it, but really think about it. Life is a property of the universe. Why? How do we know? It's here, and we're it. So to know that it's a fundamental property of the universe, why would it just only be here? The universe isn't that random, it's consistent, right? So at any rate, that opened my mind to that possibility. And then when I saw the video, I knew that wasn't our tech, because we don't do advanced technology demonstrations in training ranges. And by the way, so I served on an aircraft carrier workups like the one that the USS Roosevelt was going and doing with Ryan Graves and his squadron mates flying in this Comp 2X was the name of the exercise. They are very compressed. These aviators got to get carrier qualled in their landings, and everything's just, time is short, okay? So we don't mess around, and we don't test out technology that causes safety of flight issues. So I knew it wasn't ours. I had a top secret clearance, and I was read into special access programs. I knew our adversaries did not have this tech. So and by the way, and there's some people out there there are a lot of people who are debunkers. They try to explain away this. Some of them are supported by the intelligence community. There's a very active disinformation campaign, and I can go into that. So that's our government, and you all have to. don't opine on all this because you're part of the government now, and the government, parts of the government right now, have determined that this is information we are not going to disclose. And so you have to be careful about what we say about the government's policy because you're in the government now. But I can say whatever I want.
Well, sir, going off of that, and I won't get too deep into that
Sure.
topic. I know a little bit about Arrow
Yeah.
and some of the controversies that are surrounding that agency. What is your opinion on Arrow? Do you think that it's like, do you think that some of it is disinformation or it's controlled access information for like the population to discern some of the UAP phenomenon, or do you think some of Arrow's intent may not be malicious but misleading?
Right. So Arrow is this DoD office to study UFOs, and it has a congressional mandate that's unclassified: study UFOs, report on them. And I met with their acting director at the beginning of this year, and it was clear to me they are not doing that, and they are actively spreading disinformation. And by that I mean that Congress said, we want you to send us a report on all the historical records that the DoD has on UAP. And they produced a report that was so flawed, had errors, it was incomplete, and that's the problem. Now, why are they doing that? Well, I'm speculating here, but to me, there were elements of the intelligence community. Their acting director was a former Director of National Intelligence Office employee, and his whole career was counterintelligence. And it was just clear to me. I'm a Navy information warfare officer. That's I know, and they're sending out disinformation because they don't want our adversaries to know that we have holes in our air defense and maritime defense capabilities and maritime domain awareness capabilities. And that's okay. That's legit, but it's not part of their mandate to do. And so the IC has kind of crept into that office, and Congress is not happy. And now they have a new director, and he's really solid. He comes from the intel community, and I've not yet met with him, but I believe he's going to turn a new course on that. But that previous bit of what they did to me and tried to influence me was, I think, pretty outrageous. And not what the taxpayers and the Congress want them to be doing. Now, again, and the reason I've come out and spoken about this, if the government truly believed, well, parts of the government do believe that this is information that should stay classified, the trouble with that is the leader of the Senate, Schumer, and his Republican colleague in the Senate, Mike Rounds, they introduced a bill, and they call it the UAP Disclosure Act last year. Not all of it got passed, but it was introduced, and they even took time on the Senate floor to talk about it. And it basically, the reality of UAP and non-human intelligence and this technology of unknown origin is that genie is out of the bottle with this legislation, because it just defines all that. It was informed by informed by meetings with people who were in the program. And for anyone who really wants to get into this issue, my colleague who stood right next to me, Lou Elizondo, he's written a book, and have you read it?
I haven't read his book.
His book is really good. Yeah, this is really from A to Z on this topic. He's written. It's a great book. He gave me a shout out at the end, and I encourage people who are really interested in this topic to get the book. It's called Imminent, and you can just Google his name, Lou Elizondo, and his book will pop up. It's interesting. And so we should go back to your original question, Kate. What does this mean for you and your careers? It's hard to say because we're imagining a future that we just have never seen. It's not a repeat, and a lot of history just repeats itself. This is totally unknown territory, but I think we can look at other disruptive moments and maybe walk that out a bit. And I think when you look at, for example, Einstein and relativity, and that just changed so much of the way modern our iPhones, our communications, the GPS navigation, all our satellites, they use relativity in some way, the concepts from it. And that's thus exponential leaps in technology over the last few century. And I think that's what we probably have on the horizon. And we're already seeing some pretty incredible things right now in terms of technology for national defense. So you're going to have maybe some of that. You're going to have reverse engineering and spin-offs. Like NASA shuttle program, one of the benefits of that program were all these technology spin-offs that occurred. So I think we might be seeing things like that we can't even imagine. And then, of course, then there's this whole security issue of other civilizations interacting with us, not knowing their intent, not knowing who they really are or where they're from. That's a whole nother dynamic. How is that going to affect naval warfare and operations? I don't know. No one knows. But it's there. And, I mean, the reality is this. In Lou's book, he talks about some of the underwater and maritime observations out there. In one report from overhead, I think it was videos, so airborne classified video, an object was observed that was larger than an oil rig, moving under the water. And what is that? How is that going to affect maritime security? And so there's thus this should be brought out in the open, and people like you should be researching it. I've called for maybe establishing major programs in UAP studies, both hard science, technology, as well as the softer sciences like humanities, the socio-cultural and socio-economic implications. So. There you go.
That's very interesting. So, as we learn more about this, and we're kind of when we commission as officers, we're going to be learning about this, as our enlisted are going to be learning about this. So, how can you recommend that we lead our enlisted as we're kind of taking in that information with them, and we're kind of learning, we're on that learning curve with them, we're on that journey with them about learning all this new technology. So, do you have any advice for us as future leaders to just try and lead in a time when everything is very uncertain?
Well, there's always going to be uncertainty. Good question, Kate. This is a great question. Here's what I recommend you take from this: that everybody has a contribution, and don't discount what any individual sailor or shipmate says if they see something or ideas they have about doing something going forward in terms of research or whatever, because really everybody has a contribution. And just because you're a junior doesn't mean you can't not only have a worthwhile idea, but also lead up. And I see examples of leading up all the time. And my sailors who were always showing me the way in terms of integrity and work ethic. And so that's something I encourage everybody who's listening to take on board, that no matter how junior, everyone, plebes, you're serving our country. You're not just a plebe. So maybe plebe summer you were, but
Yes, sir.
but really, and I think and I've seen it. I see it all the time.
Yes. Hayden is very sorry, Luke. I should say Luke. Still getting used to first names around here, but
I understand.
Luke is very interested in leadership, and I want to kind of pass the torch to him for a second to just talk a little bit about leadership.
So one of my favorite questions to ask officers, senior officers, junior officers, you name it, is what leadership style do you feel is best while leading junior sailors or even junior officers as you rank up?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you have fleet time, so you know this matters a lot. So thank you, Luke. Well, and I don't want to be preachy, because I might know a thing or two because I'm old, but I'm interested in your thoughts, and you too. I mean, you all have good ideas. You wouldn't just survive plebe summer with my daughter, both of you. So I know you have a good idea on what leadership worked and didn't work.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure you guys seen good and bad leadership throughout plebe summer, right? I'm sure you guys have your
Oh,
takes. Yeah.
were you a first set detailer?
I was first set. Yes, sir.
Good. Yeah, you worked your butt off. I really respect that very much,
Appreciate it.
Gavin.
Thank you, sir.
I saw. I was coming here quite a bit to see my daughter Aspen, and I was impressed. I never did that, and I have such new respect for that. But well, to answer your question, first off, I think especially nowadays it's a bit different than the old Navy, but modern naval leaders need to be approachable and authentic. They don't need to be above the sailors. They need to be right there with them. They need to grab an oar and row with them, and show them they're willing to do that. That's really important. Because you're all smart enough. You understand authority. The division officer or whoever, the chief is, they're going to be accountable. So their authority is by definition. But it doesn't hurt at all to show that you're human, to ask others what they think, and that's what I think is really important. Is being authentic and having empathy. Leadership is just all about that. It's about really caring about, like we talked about the superintendent. It's evident that she cares, and not very, and she expresses that in an authentic way. And so I'm proud to be her classmate for one.
Yeah.
And she is fantastic. So you follow her lead and you'll do very well. That's one. There's a lot of other ideas. Here's something funny. Because my daughter said, try to be funny. She wanted, and it's good. You should have fun. This is absolutely approach work and life like that, to have fun. And I think humor is one of the best things. This is not artificially. If you're just not that funny, don't worry about it. But if you have a good sense of humor, bring it on. I try to use that a lot in work. I had some great experiences. One time, for example, I got a chance to speak at a conference, and I was a 1-star, and it was a big deal. So at the time, President Obama was president, and it was a conference on the ocean. And so here was the lineup this day. Secretary John Kerry was then Secretary of State. He gets up, speaks about the ocean. And following him is President Obama. He gets up and speaks. Now, I'm not necessarily of the same political persuasion as Obama, but he is a great speaker. Oh, my God, he's charismatic. He knows his topics. And so he gives this great talk on the ocean. Everybody's really moved. And then guess who followed him? The actor, the Academy Award-winning actor Leonardo DiCaprio, who I believe you guys aren't too old to not know who he is. I think you are too young. I mean,
We're still there.
Okay, good. So Leo gets up and speaks, and guess who had to follow him? Me. So, and I'm serious. He walks right off stage, and I go right up there, and this is 1,000 people. There's all these dignitaries. It's a lot of foreign people, foreign governments, representatives. And 2 giant screens, the speaker's images on these huge screens in the State Department. And so I got up there, and I thought, oh my God, how am I going to follow this guy? He just won the Academy Award for The Revenant, Best Actor, which is an amazing movie. And so he gets, what's funny about that too is, so Obama gives this great talk. Leonardo DiCaprio, this Best Actor winner, he gets on, he takes his speech, and he just reads it line by line with no emotion. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was really a letdown. But of course, everyone still loved him, and he gave him a round of applause. But
Artificial.
Yeah, right. Then I get up there. So I made up a story to kind of grease the gears, and I said, well, good evening, or good afternoon, everybody. I said, well, this is a real tough one. How do you follow the most recent Best Actor Academy Award winner? And so I shared a story with them. I said, well, you know what? I figured I'd ask my wife, who was a Navy diver, and studied the oceanography like me, loved the ocean, also loved Leo, one of her favorite actors, and Titanic was one of her favorite movies. So I said, Kara, what do I say to sort of break the ice? And she said, well, Tim, you just tell them the only difference between you and your Navy career and Leo is that none of your ships ever sank. And I said this. I made it up, by the way. I made that. She didn't really say that to me, but I made it up to sort of. And everyone did. They laughed and gave me a round of applause. So that was a good way to break the ice. But
he probably gave you a smirk or something, DiCaprio.
Oh, he was gone.
Oh,
he just took off. Funny thing about Leo. Another good thing is, so here is a person that really was influential in my career. And one thing about leadership: follow good examples. And that's always, you never can lose. One example for me was the man who discovered the Titanic, the shipwreck, Robert Ballard, a Navy oceanographer, and I worked with him several times throughout my career. And so when I actually gave a Forrestal lecture in 2019, because I was the assistant secretary, I was the head of NOAA. And I wanted to give a talk on the ocean. In fact, you just had the head of NOAA recently, and it was for the same event 5 years ago, this Science and Engineering Conference.
NASEC,
Yeah, that was it. And so I was sort of the capstone event for that whole conference. And I gave a topic on the strategic importance of the ocean, and it was fun because I got to highlight all that we were doing in our agency and how it related to national security. But I had fun with it. And so one of the things I did is, I don't know, but when I was a plebe, the upperclassmen and the graduates, they'd always say that their plebe year was the hardest plebe year, right? And so they'd always start off, when I was a plebe, ... So I made up a big sign and it said, "When I was a plebe," and I got audience participation. So what I did is I talk about these big changes that were happening with regard to the ocean, like China on the scene now. China was a third world country when I was a plebe, you know. And so every time I would say something about these big changes, I held up the sign, and the whole brigade would say, "When I was a plebe," and it was fun. We had fun with it. And so, but I told a joke. I told a joke at the end, and it was kind of relevant because I came to the oceanography community because of Robert Ballard. He was the Forrestal speaker when I was a third class, and he just discovered Titanic. And he gave this great talk about finding the Titanic, and he had the video, and he had a remotely operated vehicle on a cable he used to search for the ship. And you know, on the beginning, have you ever seen the movie, the Titanic?
Titanic, yes.
At the very beginning, the ROV's there, and it comes up to the bow of the ship, and he was the one who inspired it. So he gives his Forrestal lecture, and I was hooked. I'm going to do that. Ocean tech, oceanography, that's me, and I did it. Well, you know, 25 years later, I'm the deputy oceanographer of the Navy. I'm an 06, and one of my jobs is to start working with him on a lot of things. That was nice, and then as the oceanographer, I work with him. Funny thing is, we had him over for a dining in when I was the oceanographer of the Navy, and my guys and gals, at the end of it, they had a big reveal of a poster, and it was photoshopped the poster of the Titanic movie with Kate Winslet and Leo, and she's in his arms, you know, and they're on the bow of the Titanic, and they photoshopped my face for Kate and Ballard's.
Oh my gosh!
And it was pretty bad. I mean, he didn't laugh that much, but we all did. At any rate, I get to the Forrestal lecture. Here's my friend. I've been working with him for years now, and he was my inspiration to come to the academy. So I told the story of how that he influenced me in this way. But now when I got to NOAA, I was funding him about $6 million a year to do more research. He had his own ship and everything. He worked closely with NOAA. So the joke I use is that he was my inspiration when I was a midshipman, but when I came to NOAA as the administrator, I was his $6 million man. If you've ever heard of the show, have you heard of the show?
That's an old one.
You know it, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good one. That got some laughs.
That's good.
Which I know that, anyways, long story. It's good just be human, have a sense of humor.
I will say, sir, the last the NOAA Forrestal we had, you know, a lot of people were not too perceptive. I think he was, you know, what you're describing is breaking the ice, a lot of humor involved, getting some brigade participation. I think this one had a lot of like, why are we here? Like, it's not funny.
My wife told me this. I mean, Karen Astman, sorry. Yeah, I was disappointed because I don't want to make negative comments because Rick is my friend, but...
he had good data, too. It's just the presentation could have been...
Why does this matter to the Navy?
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, he had been in the Navy Oceanographer's office, but, well, yeah. I don't want to... but that's actually a good lesson here, is you're all going to be public speakers. This is what you do as a naval officer. You're going to get out there, even if it's just your division and at morning quarters. You're going to have to pump them up, tell them what's going on, make them want to work that day for you. And so it helps to be a good speaker. And it's not natural to everybody. I mean, I was not a natural leader at all. But you rise up, you learn, you practice, you have good examples, you listen to your chiefs and the superior officers that you admire and the junior shipmates that you want to be like too. And you get better as you go.
Sir. Awesome.
That was a long answer to your question there, Luke, but
it's
a good topic, yeah, and everybody should think about this. I'll share one more thing on leadership. So it's good that you do this, that you ask questions, you're learning now, because when I got to NOAA, civilian agency, they don't do what they do in the Navy. They don't train you from day one to be a leader in the civilian agencies. So I had so many people coming up to me, and this is why I wrote the book that's going to be published in August. Tell me what you think about leadership, because no one ever really trained them, and they were going to be, some of them, they're coming to a point in their career, they're named supervisor over so many people, and they don't even know they're just not sure how to do that. And so I put together a leadership philosophy. I think you know what that's about, don't you? Sure. Every commanding officer puts out a leadership philosophy. Here's who I am, here's what I think about leadership, and it's a great thing to do because everybody knows now what to expect, and that builds trust. But they hadn't even seen that, so I ended up producing one. I sent it to you, I think,
You did.
And they loved it because they just no one ever done like anything like that, and it was great. And so I was that was really motivating for me to be able to do some good for these people who are hungry to be good leaders. Everybody wants to do a good job. No one wants to be a jerk, but if you're not really equipped, it's hard. So, good question.
I do have another one for you.
Go.
First off, thank you for sharing us your book. Hopefully you don't mind me asking a couple questions.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was taking a look at it, and I was specifically looking at chapter 12, which was one of the leadership ones. And one thing that I just stood out to me was with dignity and respect, or not, yeah,
with gratitude and
with
respect.
gratitude and respect. And I was just curious on how you thought of that and turned something small like that to, as a leader, collectively and on an individual level, just had that much of an impact on people. Something that small.
Yeah. Well, what Luke is talking about is that, so I get, this is a big move for me. I went from leading the Navy Oceanography community, which is about 3,500 people, and I forgot our budget. It was about $350 million. And NOAA is an agency with 20,000 people, contractors and feds, and $6 billion budget. So I just giant jump in responsibility. And so I had to, I just thought about it. I thought, well, gosh, how do I appeal to these people? And I just had to be human and approachable, and rather than just be really stiff in my correspondence sincerely and have it draft by a staffer. I wrote everything. Whenever all hands broadcast emails, I always wrote it myself, and it was always in my voice, so they knew it was me. And it wasn't perfect, but and then I'd sign it rather than being, sincerely. I thought about what am I as a leader? Well, I'm grateful and respectful. This is how I feel, and that's how I signed every one of my pieces of correspondence with gratitude and respect. And that was, you're right, and you keyed into it. People, I didn't think people noticed until later on when I started hearing it back at me. And that was the thing, is people would write and sign their emails back to me with that.
Right.
Which was really rewarding. Yeah. And you know it's working then. Yeah. Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Sweet. Kate, what is our next couple questions? Do we have any questions from the company?
Yeah, so a few people I had some questions about what you think is just like the epitome of like being a good leader. That's what the majority of the questions were about. It was very much like, how can we as midshipmen utilize the Naval Academy to develop ourselves over these 4 years to become naval officers. So I guess like a good question just to kind of like generalize like all of those would just be like, how did you take advantage of your Naval Academy career? Like what opportunities did you take that like developed you into the officer that you are today, and just like the person that you are today?
Well, that's a great question. It's kind of you, because it's very respectful. But to be honest with you, I was not very good here. In terms of, I had good grades, and I got a scholarship to go to Scripps, and I was a really good swimmer. But I did not focus on professional development like you do now. I'm watching what my daughter does, and it is so much more than I ever did. And it was different than in the late 80s, but that was not my strong suit. And I didn't. It took me a while to learn that in the fleet. And so I'm going to be totally honest with you. I was not strong at all here in that respect. I think I was a good teammate, because I have a lot of company mates that I still have good relationships with. But I didn't take time to develop plebes like you're doing here, Gavin, which is terrific. And I love this. This is fantastic what you're doing. But so I think, yes, to take advantage of what you're learning now, you'll be so much more equipped in the fleet. And thankfully, I somehow made it. I think, what happened is I had really good chiefs on my first ship. They showed me the way. And I had to learn a lot, but that was helpful. And then I had really good officers, too. I was on a small unit, an oceanographic unit, and my COs and XOs were just really, really good people. And they knew I'd still have a lot to learn, and they were patient. So that was really good. But yeah, I mean, I could have been a lot farther ahead, and if I had taken advantage of all the great training you do here. So it's really neat. There's a lot of good camaraderie things you do here too, which is terrific. What was the thing you did last night? This milk run?
Oh, did Aspen talk about it?
Yeah, she did. What they call that?
Yeah, it's the Milk Mile, sir.
The Milk Mile. Holy
Yeah,
We
it's
have
just
our winner
kind of a
here.
yeah.
Do you have a woman in your company who ran it?
Yes, we had was it Kate Walls, my squad leader Mia Lasanti ran it. I think it, Daisy Dastrup. Yeah.
That's the girl.
Yeah. She's great.
I hear she's pretty. She's gonna go EOD, right?
That's what
Yeah.
she wants. That's what she wants.
Right on. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good event. I did end up winning that.
You did.
I did.
Get out of here!
Yeah.
What'd you do? What was your mile time?
Well,
You
I didn't,
chugged 4 things around.
yeah. So how it went? I actually
You won overall or what?
I did win the entire event.
Get the heck out of here! Way to go!
Would you like to see a video of me?
Do
All right.
show, please.
Yeah, I can't pull it up on here, but I'll show you a little video my friend sent.
Oh man, that's great.
Just a.
So is this just your class?
Yeah, well, it was just a company thing. So
Oh, it was a company
in
thing.
the Liberty formation, we had it on the track. So one thing about our company, I don't know if it's a shame that you guys had to leave, but like our company is really about like a lot of morale, like boosting events.
Love
like,
this.
yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So we start off, chugging a milk carton, and then, every lap you're doing this. Yep. That's my buddy Joey. We're going neck and neck on this whole thing. And then this is the ending.
Is that you?
That was me, sir.
Oh my gosh! And you did not throw up, so you.
I did- Wait, he gets up and he's trying to finish that event.
Oh gosh, he's got cramp. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Oh,
Yeah.
that's horrible.
And he's crossing.
Oh my gosh,
So-
that's great.
We love to have fun, so.
Good. That's terrific. And hey, bring that to the commands you go to, the Marines and the fleet. When you'll do. No one will complain. It's
Sure.
just totally authorized and good to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I personally think this was kind of a style for me a little bit in plebe summer. I think I had a little bit of a different, style in terms of leadership. I don't know if you guys would agree or not, but, I'd come down super hard on them, but I also like to have fun a little bit, right? Like, I don't think you should be fake. I think
100%. This is really key.
you can, your subordinates can see right through it.
Yeah.
People will, sometimes a lot of people come into detailing and will try to put on a facade.
Yeah.
Some sort. They want to act tough or act a different way than they actually are. But, after 2 days, people are like, I know who you are.
100%. You have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. And if you're not a guy or gal who just yells at people by nature and that's coming, you have to do it a different way. You have to be hard on people. You can do that. Trust me. I mean, there are ways that are more effective than yelling to make people feel
Sure.
like they
Sure.
they want to answer up. So good. That came out. Aspen speaks really highly of you, and that's true. And that's such a good lesson for this podcast right here. Is you have to adopt the leadership style that suits you, and not everybody is going to be, I don't know.
Freaking Jocko Willink,
Jocko Willink or Bill McCraven, who's a good friend of mine, or I would say good friend, a friend, and who I admire and inspired my book. But you have to be who you are.
Sir.
Jocko, he's a little bit in my book because I worked at Naval Special Warfare Command, and I don't know if you got to this part, but in the height of the insurgency in Iraq, I'm at the headquarters. We're getting all the reports about different things happening, and my buddy was a SEAL and was on a team with Jocko, and he was at the headquarters there, and I remember him saying, "Did you hear about Jocko today?" And I'm like, "Who's that?" And he was telling me about the crazy stuff he was doing with Task Force Bruiser.
Yeah, Bruiser.
Yeah, really impressive.
What's that done? Yeah.
Sir, when you were both a junior officer and a senior officer, how important was it to you for just knowing your people? Whether that was other people in your wardroom, if it was chiefs in the mess, or just junior sailors on the mess decks. How important was that to you? And did you stress the importance of that when you were a senior officer on your junior officers?
I did. Interestingly, Luke, that know your people, it's in my book. I have the last section of 10 leadership tips, and that's the first one. And it's important at any level, and because then you can better look out for your people and know who they are and anticipate what they might need and know how to develop them. It's the most important thing, and it will also show that you care about them more than anything else. If you can remember about their families and what they like to do, their interests, and how they learn. It's one of the most important things. Plus, it's when, especially for a big organization, on an aircraft carrier, for example, I would work hard to remember the names of all the chiefs because they carried the ship. And here I'm an officer, even though I was on the deck of the bridge a lot, but not around the deck department or the engineering space a lot. But I got to know a lot of chiefs because I knew that would send a signal. And I like chiefs. Chiefs, you'll always learn from a Navy chief, and so that was something. And I brought that to NOAA too, and I worked really hard at that. It's something you should always take time for is study up on your people and make sure you know what they're doing, and ask them about how are things going, and mean it. I mean, when you ask that question, then listen.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to do, and not just run about the day afterwards, but like, oh, tell me about this. Okay, what can I do for you? And that's another one is, I think, one of the things I did quite a bit is when you're in meetings, whatever it be, a division officer meeting or whatever it is, finish it as a leader by saying, okay, what can I do for you? And really mean it. And maybe that if you just give them your ear, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn things you need to know, and that they may not want to tell you. And then and if you because that's sometimes people don't want to share things with the boss, but if you really say that often, pretty soon they're going to say, okay, I'm going to answer this time. Here's something. This is hopefully relatable in the Navy, but when I got to NOAA, agency, civilians, my wife had a really bad experience in the Navy. Early time for Navy women to be on ships, and only woman on her ship, a salvage ship. She was a diver. The CEO hated divers. He hated women on ships. Made life really bad for her. She got out of the Navy because of it. He was court-martialed also because of it. It was that bad. So I brought that whole thing to my Navy career and was a champion for empowering women, and for that reason. And I got 3 daughters now. But I also brought it to NOAA, and I would speak about this. And she was courageous enough to let me share her story in public, and I did it often, to make the point that sexual harassment and assault have no place in a federal agency anywhere, period. And I have authority. I'm a leader, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm not just going to say the words. And people heard me say that and heard her story, and they would come to me and they'd say, "Hey, I got a situation here, and it's not going that well." Often. And so I bring that, when you're at a head of a big agency, and this is the same in command, you have a staff that's going to basically want to shield things from you or just keep you safe, and that's good. But so the headquarters staff and the general counsel lawyers, they don't answer that email. There's an investigation, and the government, you could hurt the government's case and all this. All the lawyers just could not, don't answer that email. It could be used against us in court. And I looked at them and I thought, are you crazy? Are you an alien? This is a human being on my in my agency who is going through some pain. All right. Now, of course, I don't know what really happened, and there could be a lot of complicating factors. But for me, just not to answer and say I care, and every time I still did. No matter what the lawyer said, don't, I did every time. I said, look, there's an investigation. I can't say anything. I can't choose a side, but I can tell you this. I care about this issue. I don't want things like this to occur, and I will do everything I can to prevent it in the future. And just to give them that, okay, or at least I was heard. And so, and there are other examples of that too, but yeah.
Awesome, fantastic.
Thank you for that. I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So on top of you've obviously led a very successful and busy career, and I'm just wondering, you've written a book, you've testified before Congress 12 times, how in the midst of all of this did you kind of find that balance between your family life, your work life, your personal life, how, because as I'm struggling just as a plebe, time management, just getting my work done. So I'm just wondering how have you developed time management to do the things that make you happy, and also just get your work done, write a book, testify before Congress, make all of these crazy historical discoveries that are so relevant to our world today.
You're very kind to be that respectful, and I thank you for that, Kate. But well, first off, be balanced. I'm a real fan of physical fitness. I swam at Navy, and I try to keep that up. And when I'm physically fit, I'm mentally fit, I'm spiritually fit too. I feel like I can be a good person. So find that what works for you. It's really, and you guys, everybody's PTing around here, so that's a good thing. You get that down. Don't get out of that habit. It's very easy if you go on a ship or whatever. Luckily, there's a lot of things in place now that make it easier, but programs. But just keep that up, and you'll feel better about yourself. So physical fitness. Take time to read and maintain your mental acuity, and it's not easy. I got that, and then take time for your friends and your family. You'll never regret taking time for your family, and if you have to miss a few work things, that is always there. So that balance is one way. The other thing that I think one reason I'm successful is not because I'm smart, it's because I know how to organize really well. And like, for example, I got my hand on a lot of stuff. I'm consulting for a bunch of tech companies, some universities, some nonprofits, and we're all doing neat things. And I organize that well. Where, let's say, for example, let's say we're classes, I keep folders for all the materials for my classes, and then every time there's a lecture maybe, or I have a meeting about it, I take notes. I have a folder for that class or that client or that pursuit, UAP, and I keep a running set of notes, and I put the date, what I talk about, who I talk with, and I do this for mentoring. I have a set of notes mentoring, and I list everybody I mentor with, and every time I do it and I talk with them, I'll put the date, and I'll remember, so I can remember who their siblings are, or their mom and dad, or where they're from, and so I can pull it up, and I look at that before I meet with them again, and I can remember. So it's just organizing yourself and keeping a record will help you do that to time manage, because it's hard to remember everything. But if you take notes, organize your files electronically, that's then like Karen, which my wife would say, you get it done and you close that drawer and move on to the next one and open that one and you do it, and then you can close that drawer. And it's just easier to manage. If you have every drawer open and you're one of those people who has a desk that's got stuff all over it, that's hard, okay? I can't deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have things in place so I know where to get them when I need them, and then when I'm done with it, I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of my trick. Now, when you have a kind of messy desk, that's a sign of some creativity, and that's a good thing too. You just have to find out a system that works for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's helpful.
One of the things I've told my daughter too is I was pretty good at rates because I could memorize. Because I would take whatever I had to learn and I'd write it down. I wouldn't just study. I would take, after learn about all of the countries in the world for history class. Well, how do you do that? Well, why don't you just write down first every continent, and then under that continent, type in the country as you learn it, and maybe type something about it, so a cue that will make you remember. And the process of actually typing or writing is a way to reinforce your memory. And so there's tricks too to that, and that's one of them. And that's what I taught her, and I did that quite a bit. So it's hard to keep track of everything in life, but you have to find a system that works for you. You reminded me of something interesting about that. I'll stop there.
Okay. Do you guys have any other?
Yeah. I have a question about one of your awards.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I didn't even know about this until she brought it up. So my dad was in the Coast Guard for 30 years.
Really?
Yes, sir.
What did he do?
So he was prior ETC at his 15-year mark, and then he warrant officer.
That's great.
W4.
God, I'd like to talk to him about his sea stories. Is he still alive?
So he retired back in 2019, I believe.
Coast Guard's such a good service.
Yeah, I'm considering. Hopefully down the line, I would like to pursue.
Can you do a transfer?
Yes, sir.
I know the last 5 or 6 commandants. One of them I testified with in one of my hearings. Yeah,
Awesome.
I love the Coast Guard. Yeah.
I know. In 2016 was the last USNA grad who graduated from USNA but commissioned in the Coast Guard.
So if you need a letter for that,
No.
I told you seriously. I know a lot of commandants, and the current commandant I know. Admiral Fagan. So. Yeah, if there's like a letter, a package, whatever, I'm going to write a letter for you.
Awesome.
And we'll stay in touch, okay? So I can
Thank
keep
you.
up with you and make sure that thing's good.
So my question was was it public service Award? Coast
Yeah,
Guard
this
Public
is
Service
it.
Award?
This is what we're talking about. It's a good lesson here.
Mhm.
Did you happen to read that part of the book?
I have not, no.
It's in the epilogue.
Okay.
If you want to read this. So this is a good lesson, I thought, and that's why I end the book this way. So I get into NOAA, this agency. Coast Guard's our closest partner. We work on all sorts of things: charting, oil spill cleanups, fisheries regulations and enforcement. So and I knew it was important with the Trump administration pretty much wanting to cut our budget every year, that I needed partners that I could work with, and we could get people and other agencies to support our mission accomplishment. When we didn't have a lot of money, we could at least go, because they were getting funded well. Trump loved the Coast Guard. So so anyway, okay, whatever works. They're getting let's work with them. So I made it a priority. All right, this is going to be an important partnership, and I'm going to be personally involved. So our liaison at the Coast Guard headquarters, downtown D.C., we had an officer, a NOAA Corps officer, and every time I said, look, every commandant's morning brief on Friday, he had a Friday morning brief. I want you to brief him 3 things about NOAA, and it was aligned to our priorities. One thing was about all the ocean work we did, and we called it our blue economy, all the work we do to support the ocean-related economy. The second thing was improving our weather forecast model, the American model. Everybody talks about the American model being not as good as the European weather model, and we did some things to change that. And I wanted him to know how we were doing with weather forecasting, because usually whenever there's a big weather event like a hurricane, Coast Guard has to get involved with all the cleanup with us. So weather-related things that matter to the Coast Guard, ocean activity they cared about, and then anything about us working together in terms of our partnership. And where we did a training event together, some news. So any news about an event to say that we are working together, you should know this coming on the Coast Guard. So every Friday for 3.5 years, my fingerprints were all over that. I always edited it. I always made sure he knew it was coming from me. The 2 commandants who were there, Zugkampf and then Schultz. Well, the last Friday, so I left the administration. Trump administration turns over to Biden, and political appointees like me, we all left, and 99% of us, and they brought on their team, Dr. Spinrad, who you just had, and so my last Friday, I personally wrote a letter to the commandant, and it was on my letterhead, Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and I wrote, and I just said, hey, Commandant Schultz, we did great things these 3 years together, and I ticked him off. We cooperated on illegal fishing. We worked on unmanned systems and drones and expanded our drone programs together, and we cleaned up oil spills, and we did some other. We responded to hurricanes, and we charted ports. We made mixed charts, the nautical charts. So we did all this work together, and I just said thank you. You know, it's been great to be your partner, and I signed it. Semper Paratus. What does that mean?
Always ready. Always ready.
Always ready? Is it
No,
always
not always
faithful?
ready.
No, that's Marine Corps.
It's always ready.
ready.
Yeah.
No, it's always
Yeah, okay. So always ready. The Coast Guard's motto: Semper Paratus. Tim Gallaudet. And I told our liaison officer, read this verbatim during the Friday brief. This is my last one, and I just want him to know that this partnership was a priority for us.
Right.
And so he did. 3 weeks later maybe, I get a call. Hey, Coast Guard Commandant staff. Sir, Coast Guard Commandant wants you to invite you to the headquarters to have lunch with him and his mess. Great. How nice. How good. I wanted that. It was good. I knew that he acknowledged our partnership. That's great. And then they said, there's something else. He wants to present you with the Coast Guard's Distinguished Public Service Award. And I coughed out. Like, what? What for? Okay. I look it up. It's the highest Coast Guard award not for valor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and so I thought, oh my God, what in the world? I mean, I didn't do anything. So, and he only gives one out a year. So I thought, shoot, okay, well, either way, we had a great lunch. He gives the award. Karen's there. It's pretty neat. I got nothing from the Secretary of Commerce, but okay, I'll take that. And so. We drive home that day, and I open up the citation. They didn't read the full citation. The citation was my letter to the Commandant verbatim, except for instead of saying they changed it to you, if you understand what I mean. So he saw that, and he thought, and my book is about this, that I wanted to quit a lot, the Trump administration, first one was kind of crazy, and but I never got asked to compromise my integrity. And at the end of the day, for the 5 or 9 times, I was like a cat with 9 lives. I wanted to quit. I realized quitting was the cowardly thing to do. You need to stay in it. If no one asks you to do something wrong, be there and look out for your people. And I think the commandant saw that, and he said that he saw people, politicals, just rotate through all the different departments and agencies, and I stuck it out, knowing this might trash my career, being associated with Trump, but whatever. These people need a good leader. And he saw it, and he turned my letter around. And so the point of that story, from a leadership standpoint, is, if you just give a lot, it will come back to you, and in ways you'll never expect. And I was just giving. I was just trying to represent our agency and be there, and I had no idea this award even existed. I didn't even know. And you did? Did you?
I did not.
Yeah,
know that.
exactly. And here he goes. He goes, all right, shipmate, you were a good partner, and you stuck it out. Anyways, that's why my book is called Holding Fast in Heavy Seas.
Mm-hmm.
It's just McCraven in his Make Your Bed book. I think the last one is never, ever quit. And sometimes you have to quit. You have to walk away from a toxic environment or whatever. There are times where you might have to change pace, but if you're doing good work, even though it's hard, don't quit.
It's a good title.
Yeah,
It's exactly what you just said. You managed it through all your turbulent times, and you did it for your people. So
yeah, that's right. And I hope my hope with the book is that it people like you who want to learn a little bit about leadership, that it gives you something. It gives you a positive example, at least one. And if I could just do that to a few people, that'd be great. And that's all. That's the only reason I wrote it. I'm not going to make money. This is not about a bestseller. This is about, if I could, I'd love to get a review in Proceedings and just have it out there as, hey, and hopefully it would be a good review. Sometimes, have you read the Proceedings reviews? Do you ever read those book reviews?
sometimes they're a little critical.
They are a little critical, that's
A
right.
little bit.
Then that's a good thing. That's a
Yeah,
very
it's
good.
Sure.
All right, what else can I do for y'all?
Well, we are approaching the hour mark, and
Okay.
I do want to go ahead and wrap it up for you. We don't want to hold your time. And,
Well, okay, but let's make sure is there anything that we didn't cover you'd like to?
I think we covered most of our bases. Do you guys have any other questions?
What is your best sea story? We got to hear that
We
one.
got to hear this one.
Oh.
Number 1.
Okay, I'll tell you the number one. And it's not, sorry, Aspen, it's not really funny, but I'll never forget it. So I was the officer of the deck on the USS Kitty Hawk, and the Kitty Hawk was an awesome ship. It was an old ship, but we did the first strikes into Afghanistan after 9/11, and we didn't even have the air wing. We had the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment that had Task Force Sword embarked, SEALs, CIA operators, Rangers.
Sword was on the Kitty Hawk?
Task Force Sword.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
It was. That's a whole thing. It's in my book too. Really proud to be a part of that. And then of course we came back and turned our ship around, had to fix things up, and we went right into the first strikes into Iraqi freedom in 2003. So great ship. But and I love being an OD on an aircraft carrier because it's a big bridge team. You have a lot going on with flight operations and trying to underway replenishment. Things were crazy. A lot going on, but a ship driving standpoint, such a rewarding tour. Driving a 1,000-foot long ship at 35 knots, flying aircraft, just a great job. And I'm an oceanographer, so I just stared at the ocean for 8 hours a day. It was great. But we're going into the Straits of Malacca on the way to Iraq.
Busy.
Yeah. So when things may be different today, but in 2003, we have a strike group. We have a destroyer ahead of us, the Curtis Wilbur plane, and we, as you get close to the strait, you end up sending a couple helicopters airborne in front of you to do force protection. Look for any fast-moving boats that could be armed, and they have 50 cals on them, and they're ready to defend the ship. So as is for air defenses, the destroyer and the whole strike group's together. Well, whenever you have an aircraft aloft, the carrier needs a plane guard in case one of the aircraft crash. You can go and recover the pilots. So, okay, Curtis Wilbur, the helos launch, and we ask her to take station. Plane guard is on the stern of the carrier, maybe 2,000 yards, and that's the station. She was on our port bow, maybe 2,000 yards. I don't remember, but she's steaming close, and on the flag bridge, the strike group commander's staff is giving the orders. And they tell us, all right, she's going to take plane guard and stern of you. Good. I'm OD. I'm driving the ship. The CO's right in his chair. And the ship, to take station behind us, should have turned to port and just kind of gone around the back, right? No, she turned to starboard, okay? And it was really, so the aircraft carrier, when you're on the bridge, you're 100 feet above the waterline, and when you look at the bow of the flight deck, you still have an 800-foot shadow zone of sea that you cannot see, because of the height. And she disappeared under our bow.
Oof.
So this is where, and I've never been in, I mean, these were combat deployments, but I've never been shot at. I don't know that experience, but this is the closest it ever came to that, because operators will say everything slows down, and you know, like a million things come into your mind in a millisecond, and that's what happened to me. I went and I said, right full rudder, all ahead flank, sound the collision alarm. I give all the orders out like I knew to do, and we just turn over, and I'm thinking, holy cow, we are going to cut a ship in half, and I'm going to kill 300 sailors. It's going to sink. No one's going to live. And I thought, oh my God. And I did everything I could, and I remember having all this time before, I mean, in 1 second of, oh, the deployments, I'm gonna get flying off the ship, I'm gonna be at this JAGMAN hearing, I mean, all these things that I was gonna have to do that I was not planning to do. And not that was the worst thing. The worst thing was about killing all these people.
Right, absolutely.
And so ultimately, and the CEO he gets up, and before he could even do anything, she shifted a rudder, and she finally swung out. And I just thought, wow. And he got up and called the flag bridge, and there was discussions and all this, and I just thought, and we come back over, and it was when you do that, by the way, it's confined space. Who knows who I was going to hit when I came over? All these things I was thinking about, and thankfully we shifted our rudder and came back, and everything worked out. And we just said to ourselves, what just happened here? That was the sea story, and I just remember thinking, God, I was very fortunate. There are a lot of times in your career where something happened, you get saved, and I got saved somehow in that course of events.
And everything slowed down completely in that, like,
God, that
little
1
time
second,
frame, yeah.
it was yeah. So there's experiences that happen in your career that you just can't even make up.
Sure.
Yeah, that's one sea story. Sorry, Aspen, I know I have funnier ones, but that's just something I'll never forget. But I did, that aside, everything else about driving the aircraft carrier was awesome. I loved it. And I had, here's one more. This is a good leadership story. On that first ship, after the Afghanistan deployment, our CO, Captain Tom Heil, the ship was the oldest ship in the Navy, and it showed it. And so we get back from Iraqi Enduring Freedom, and we got to get ready for Iraqi freedom. And ultimately, a string of events happened. We're in Yokosuka, Japan. Some sailors were carjacking locals, and yeah, I mean, you can't. This is how it is, okay?
Right.
This is what happens when you go to the fleet. That happened. We had the ship failed an engineering inspection.
Oh.
Yeah, not good. I mean, this is a big deal right before the deployment. So a couple things happened, and our CO got fired. And it was a rare firing. A lot of firings are for some kind of personal misconduct or just stupid stuff. This wasn't anything that Tom did bad. It's just that he didn't fire the Chang. And I mean, sometimes you have to fire somebody to make a change. It's not a good thing, but sometimes it has to happen. And he didn't. He was an aviator. He was a Gulf War hero and an F-18 pilot, and he just wasn't his nature to go fire people. He was trying to inspire them. And it's a fine line to know when to do either. And so, but this is it. The leadership lesson and example I learned more than any other wasn't a touchdown deployment, some major combat thing where we shot down a bunch of bad guys. It was when he got fired, because he didn't go to the press, he didn't protest, he didn't get a lawyer, he saluted and walked off the ship.
Roger that.
And he didn't leave the Navy either. So when you get fired from an aircraft carrier command, it makes national news. 100 million people read about it. It's a national asset. The president finds out. So he went and stayed in the Navy, became a strike group chief of staff, went on another deployment, and just kept on serving. And we were all, first of all, we felt terrible. We felt like we let him down. But he stayed on, and I mean, that was the example that stuck with me. And that kind of guided everything afterwards. I just knew it's not about you, it's not about your ego, it's about those you serve. And if this is a good lesson here, and I'll finish with one more. So when I first made flag, CNO John Greenert, Admiral, he sent me a letter. Now, when you make flag in the Navy, it's really special. Every other flag officer in the Navy writes you a note and says, congratulations.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you get this stack of notes. It's really cool. It makes you feel like you're part of a community. It's really neat. The head of the Navy, the highest guy, he sends me a note. And everyone else, all these other notes are like longer, and they're offering advice and all this, giving phone numbers and all this. His was very short. It said, congrats, you made it. And the second line was simple. It just said, now it's time to take a big, humble, in caps, all caps, pill. And I'll never forget that. And because that was odd, you know, he was the only guy who got really serious to the point, but there was no advice that was better. Because when you get up there, it's so easy to start feeling like you're important.
Maybe a little pompous, you know.
Oh yeah, because you got a staff that wants to do everything for you. They're going to take care of you. I mean, and so I realized, okay, every day you just got to remember, it's not about you, it's about them and your people and the American public you serve. And that was the best letter I got.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, so this concludes our podcast. I think I speak for Luke, Gavin, and myself when we said we've learned a lot from you today, and we really appreciate your service and all the lessons that you taught us in like such a short amount of time. I know I learned a lot. So yeah, we just thank you for coming here and like taking the time. Luke, do you have any final words?
No, just thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it. A lot of leadership insight that I value a lot, and I know everybody else will.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Well, Luke and Kate, it's been a pleasure, and I want to thank you both. Not many people, young people in our country, are qualified, let alone desire to serve our country like you are. And I tell you, watching my daughter and now in your company, and you two, and Gavin, it just really inspires me that we have young people in America today that want to do what you're doing. And so you keep it up. I am so proud of you, and if I can do anything for y'all over the course of your time here or later in the Navy, please don't hesitate to reach out.